Hey friend, let me take you back to a freezing night in American history. It's Christmas, December 25th, 1776. The winds howling across the icy Delaware River. The revolution's on the brink of collapse. Soldiers starving, barefoot, their spirits shattered. Defeat feels inevitable, but one man refuses to surrender. General George Washington, cold, exhausted, and outnumbered, is about to make one last desperate move. Through the darkness and across the frozen river, he plans a surprise attack, a daring gamble that will either save the revolution or end it for good. It was Christmas night, December 25th, 1776, and the American Revolution was at a critical point. For more than a year, the Continental Army, under the command of George Washington, had struggled against the powerful British forces and their allies. The army had suffered defeats in New York and retreated across New Jersey, facing constant pursuit by the British. Morale among the troops was extremely low. Soldiers were exhausted, hungry, and poorly equipped. Many of them had no shoes or proper clothing, and winter had set in with bitter cold and heavy snow. On top of that, enlistments for many of the men were about to expire. The very survival of the revolutionary cause seemed in jeopardy. Washington knew that if he did not take bold action soon, the dream of American independence could collapse before the new year. Despite the desperate situation, Washington remained calm and determined. He understood that the psychological impact of a daring strike could reinvigorate both his army and the public. That night, as snow and icy wind cut through the darkness, he made one of the most daring decisions of his life. He would attack the enemy by surprise. Across the frozen Delaware River, in the small town of Trenton, New Jersey, there were about 1,400 Hessian soldiers, German mercenaries hired by Britain to fight in the war. These soldiers were well-trained and well-armed, but they had grown complacent, confident that the weary American army posed no serious threat, and we were celebrating the Christmas holiday. Washington carefully planned the operation. He gathered about 2,400 men, dividing them into several groups to cross at different points along the icy river. They loaded into boats and began the treacherous crossing under the cover of night. The weather was harsh. The Delaware was filled with floating ice, freezing rain soaked their clothing, and sleet whipped across their faces. Many soldiers struggled to keep their footing. Some fell into the icy water, and a few sadly froze to death on the banks or in the river. But Washington pressed forward. Standing tall in his heavy cloak, he moved along the line of boats, encouraging his men with steady words and inspiring determination. He reportedly told them, "Victory or death," reinforcing the high stakes of their mission. The crossing was grueling and slow. Some boats capsized in the icy currents, and the men had to fight not only the river, but also fatigue, fear, and freezing temperatures. Washington himself endured the cold without complaint, showing remarkable personal courage and a sense of shared hardship. His presence reassured the soldiers and strengthened their resolve. By early morning on December 26th, after hours of struggle, the army reached the New Jersey side of the river, their feet stiff and faces numb, but their determination unbroken. The attack was timed perfectly. The Hessians, lulled into a false sense of security by the Christmas holiday, were still asleep in their barracks, unaware that Washington and his troops had crossed the Delaware. At first light, the Americans marched into Trenton, moving quietly and then suddenly charging with shouts and gunfire. The surprise worked flawlessly. The Hessians were caught completely off guard and were quickly overwhelmed. Within an hour, the Americans captured more than 900 enemy soldiers, along with large quantities of weapons, ammunition, and supplies. Remarkably, American losses were very light, with only a few casualties. The victory at Trenton had immediate and far-reaching effects. For the first time in months, the Continental Army celebrated a real success. Spirits soared, and soldiers who had been ready to abandon the cause regained confidence. Washington's daring move became a symbol of hope and resilience, proving that careful planning, courage, and decisive action could turn the tide even in the darkest moments. Across the colonies, newspapers and pamphlets hailed the event as a miraculous victory, inspiring ordinary citizens and encouraging more men to enlist in the army. Beyond its military significance, the crossing and the victory at Trenton demonstrated Washington's unique qualities as a leader. He was willing to share in the dangers and hardships of his men, leading from the front rather than from a safe distance. He combined strategic thinking, boldness, and human understanding, knowing exactly what his soldiers needed, not just orders, but inspiration, hope, and a sense of purpose. Washington's actions at Trenton cemented his reputation as a commander who could inspire courage and loyalty even in the most dire circumstances. After Trenton, Washington did not rest on his laurels. He understood that the enemy would not remain passive, so he prepared for further actions to capitalize on the momentum. The success reinvigorated the revolutionary cause and helped sustain the army through the brutal winter that followed. Jackie,